Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com joins us every Wednesday on the show. We'll get into the association with him, what's going on when it comes to trades, and a crisis of legitimacy for the NBA, which we'll talk about here coming up in just a couple of minutes as well. Speaking of legitimacy, a lot of people wondering about the legitimacy of the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, because you've got a Hall of Fame that has decided not to put in Bill Belichick in his first go-around with 8 Super Bowl rings, 6 as a head coach of the Patriots. We're going to get into that with Jason Cole, who's a Hall of Fame selector, longtime NFL writer and author. That's coming up in 10 minutes. But we start things out as we always do on this program. It's time for the big story. And the big story today is Bill Belichick not getting in to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And a lot of people asking a simple question. Why? How could this happen? How could it be that a coach with 6 Super Bowl rings as a head coach, 2 as a defensive coordinator, the second most wins in NFL history, is not good enough to be in the Hall of Fame? And the answer is Pro Football Hall of Fame, much like the Pro Baseball or the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, is not immune to these egotistical, self-righteous, holier-than-thou, in this case selectors, deciding they're bigger than the sport, that they've got the power, you want in, you need our vote, and we're going to make you beg and grovel. Bill Belichick's never been that guy. I don't anticipate he's going to be that guy after this. I've got a number of things I want to say about this. And there's a theme to the big story today, and that theme is legitimacy. In a day and era in which we live, where everything is being delegitimized, your politics, your news, what's fake, what's real, what's AI. I don't have any idea when I look at my different social media feeds what is real and what is fake, what is AI, what news is real, what is fake, what is AI. The Pro Football Hall of Fame really dealt a blow to itself, a self-inflicted wound, when it comes to its legitimacy. Because no matter what you think of Bill Belichick, and look, do I think he's a Hall of Fame guy? Do I think he's a Hall of Fame personality? Do I think he's a Hall of Fame contributor to anything beyond winning and losing in the game? Not really. How's his coaching tree worked out, by the way? Go look at some of the great coaches of the game and their coaching tree. How's his coaching tree been overall? Not very good. But take all that casted aside. From an X's and O's standpoint, from a do you belong in the Hall of Fame? There is not a coach of this generation or probably the last 2 generations that belongs in the Hall of Fame more than Bill Belichick. I am honest enough with myself to admit that regardless of what I think of the guy. And you have a situation now where the Hall of Fame has decided that they couldn't get 40 out of the 50 selectors to put him in on the first ballot, which means at least 11 guys said, we don't think you belong in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And there isn't anything other than ego and people wanting to stand on their high horse, that perch, and say because of Spygate or Deflategate, or we didn't like the way you dealt with us in the media, we're not putting you in. And they don't have to reveal themselves. The lack of transparency here, much like the Baseball Hall of Fame, the lack of transparency here is also what causes some of that delegitimization that the Pro Football Hall of Fame will now experience as a result of this decision. Because if he didn't get in this year, and I've said this all along, I talk about this with the Baseball Hall of Fame all the time. If you're not good enough to be a Hall of Famer on the first time, why are you suddenly good enough to be in on the second or third or fourth or 10th ballot? It always blows my mind. But especially in the case of Belichick, what is to stop these same selectors from now just saying, as long as we're here, you're not getting in? Conversely, if they put him in next year, and again, we won't know the vote total, they don't reveal the vote total, but if he gets in next year, then it just goes to show you this was all about them. It was all about the voters, the selectors. It was all about their ego. It was all about making a point. And when that's what your Hall of Fame has become about, much like we've seen in baseball over the last couple of decades, it's about you. It's not about the sport. You're putting yourself, elevating yourself above the game. And at that point, why are you even allowed to vote? Why do you have a say? If you can't make it about the sport, if you can't make it about football, which at the end of the day is what this should be about. Bill Belichick belongs in the Hall of Fame. And again, this isn't coming from a Belichick guy. Anybody who knows me long enough knows I'm not a Bill Belichick guy. But he belongs in the Hall of Fame. And what does this mean for Tom Brady? That's the next part of this story that I am fascinated to watch. Because if they're keeping out Belichick because of Spygate and Deflategate, well, who was more heavily involved in Deflategate than the quarterback of the team holding the footballs? Are they actually going to keep Tom Brady out on the first ballot, on his first time through? Are they actually going to say in his first year of eligibility in a couple of years, Tom Brady, you're not a Hall of Famer? Can you imagine? As much as they've delegitimized themselves in this process with Bill Belichick, imagine what that would do to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Who knows? Maybe it needs to happen in order to bring about change in terms of how this process is done. By the way, Bill Polian, shame on you. Shame on you. Because I know your hands are probably in this. Whether we'll ever find out or not, or if the book gets written years from now. Bill Polian, shame on you. If this was a crusade of yours, just to make it a point to keep Bill Belichick out. Again, for the love of the game, Bill Belichick belongs in the Hall of Fame. And that's your big story. We will continue the conversation. Jason Cole, Hall of Fame selector, NFL writer, author, will join us in a couple of minutes. Hear what he has to say next. All right, expanding upon what we discussed in the big story, and that is Bill Belichick not making it into the Hall of Fame on his first go-around. Didn't get the 40 votes needed out of the 50 or 40 selectors to put him in. One of those Hall of Fame selectors is with us, the great Jason Cole, longtime friend of the show, Hall of Fame selector, author of numerous books, including this one, Shut Up, Your Kid Is Not That Good. Or Your Kid Is Not That Great.
Great.
There it is. I got to screw up something every time I talk to you. Okay. All right. Help it make sense to me. Help me understand. You were the first person I texted yesterday when I saw this news, and your words to me were, this is a math problem, so explain that to the audience that's sitting there going, how is a guy with 8 Super Bowl rings, 6 as a head coach, not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, a math problem is part of the issue. It's not the primary issue. I think, the fact that 11 out of 50 people did not vote for Belichick is, a staggering thing to me. I mean, I understood, why, 4 or 5 people wouldn't vote for him. When you're talking about 11 people not voting for him, that's stronger than I expected. I think that the math problem is, just so people understand the process, we have 5 people in this voting process, and there's 3 senior candidates. Those are players. And this year, that was Elsie Greenwood, Roger Craig, and Kenny Anderson. And then we had the coach candidate, Belichick, and then the contributor candidate, which is Kraft. They all get presented, and then we vote for 3 of those candidates, and there are 50 voters. We each vote 3 times. That's 150 votes. And to get into the Hall of Fame, you at least have to get 40, or you have to be the number 1 guy in that group, right? Well, I mean, if you just do simple math and you take 150 votes, if you take 40 away, that only leaves 110 votes for the other 4 people. And that's like 27 and a half votes average. And these are all people who are really equal, like they're, it just gets really hard. Now, I will say this, I still don't understand why Belichick wasn't put in, because I thought he was the most qualified guy in the entire ballot. I understand why a few people would vote for him. And when I say entire ballot, I'm not talking about the 5. I'm talking about the entire 20. If you take this process and then you add in the 15 guys in the modern era process, which is a separate vote,
right?
If you put them together, Belichick is the most qualified guy among players and among contributors. Whatever you want to say, to me, he's number one. But I think some people held the cheating against him. That's the only thing I can really think of. Maybe some people think he's going to come back in a year and they don't want to vote for a guy who's going to come back in a year. I don't think that's happening. If he didn't get a job this cycle, he's not going to get another job. He didn't get an interview. If they want to hold something else against him, that he was mean and tough on them, well, then you didn't really work hard enough to get to know him. I mean, that's your fault. Again, I don't quite get it voting against him. I don't get 11 people voting against him or not voting for him is my big question out of this. I thought he was slam dunk. I didn't think he was going to be unanimous by any set because I know a few people who are going to vote against him. And I don't necessarily disagree wholeheartedly with what they're saying. There's an important thing to look at that, honor and not cheating does matter. I mean, if you look at the baseball process this last year that got Jeff Kent in, Jeff Kent got in over guys like Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, and Barry Bonds. And that was people inside the game who were voting. So people who are inside the game who are voting take it very seriously.
What do you say to people that would argue this delegitimizes the Hall of Fame? I know you're going to be protective of it. You vote on it.
Look, you can...
Is it a fair argument?
Well, what's legitimate? Okay, you don't like it. Tell me a better system. Yeah, that's all I can say. Like, you want to come up with it? You want to reinvent the wheel? Go right ahead. I don't care.
Do you think do you think the outcry from this might lead to that?
I think that there is a problem with the math. And I'm a rules and, math kind of guy. It's like, give me what the rules are. Tell me what it is. And then I'll say, look, there's a problem here. And I think that there's going to be something that comes out of this that changes the voting pattern. Yes. Because between this and the modern era, I think we're only going to get 4 guys in again. Mm-hmm. And that's tough. Okay. But that's a separate argument from Belichick. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But like, there's 1,000 different ways you can do this. There are holes in every one of them.
People have brought up Bill Polian. Bill Polian says, I'm not even 100% sure who I voted for, which I find stretches credulity beyond any extent for me. What do you make of the argument some have said that Bill Polian played a role in this? The politicking side.
I'm not going to talk about other voters. I'm not going to talk about what I hear in the meetings or what those people say to me privately or anything like that.
Do you know? We'll never know the number of people that didn't vote. Like, we won't find out if it's 39, 36, 35.
Well, according to the Hall of Fame, they don't even find out. The only people who know are the accounting firm that they hire, and they don't even want to know. Okay, and okay, you can buy that or not buy that. That's what they tell me, and certainly I have no way of breaking into that system to find out whether they're telling me the truth or not telling me the truth. And frankly, I don't really care. Look, I tell me what the rules are. Tell me what you want me to do. I will do the best I can to vote for the people who I think deserve to get in. And I will follow your rules. Like, we're not supposed to talk about what's said in the meeting. I'll never talk about what's said in the meeting unless somebody else talks about it and it becomes widely known. So, again, I try to follow the rules as best I can. I can only speak from my own point of view. I think there's a problem with the system, and I think that when Bill Belichick doesn't get in, that hurts us, does not help us. And it hurts. And the other thing that it hurts us is there are guys like Mike Shanahan, Mike Holmgren, and Tom Coughlin who are waiting to get in, or at least get discussed. And we've only discussed one of those guys so far, and that was Holmgren, and he didn't get in the first time.
I gotta tell you, there's a lot of people that wanted to hear what you had to say that messaged me today when I told them I was having you on. So we'll see how they react. Jason Cole, Hall of Fame selector, author, Shut Up, Your Kid Is Not That Great. Go and get it. Also, many other books. John Elway, he wrote about as well. He's written about
Plaxico Burress, Chad Johnson, Simon Keith. You probably don't know about. So there you go.
Very few people I would rather discuss this story with. Thank you, my friend. Be well. We'll talk soon.
Anytime. Be good. Thanks.
We have more on the Belichick snub and more NFL news next. We continue on this Wednesday. I don't think any of us thought we'd be talking about this story on this Wednesday. We were wondering what would fill the vacuum of nothing to talk about when it came to football for having to wait, 2 weeks till the Super Bowl. Well, Sam Yarnell, we got it. Thank you very much, Pro Football Hall of Fame. You are our new best friend. Bill Belichick not going into the Hall of Fame. You heard what Hall of Fame selector Jason Cole had to say. Sam Yarnell, I literally carved out this segment to let you respond because I had my say in the big story. We let Jason Cole say what he has to say. I want to know what you make of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's decision to not vote in the man who had the second most wins, 6 Super Bowls, two more as a defensive coordinator. Give me your thoughts on Bill Belichick not making the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Jason, and unfortunately, you and I did one of both of our least favorite things a little bit before the segment. We did a little bit of the show in the green room, but what I said to you is this, and it's my true feelings about it. This is not at all a reflection of anything besides the Hall of Fame changing their minds, I guess, or putting themselves on the proverbial hot seat, as it were, in terms of consideration for how legitimate they actually are. In no world should Bill Belichick not have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. You look at the names of people that were put in of coaches, the 5 of them that were put in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, and it's names that you would not put above Bill Belichick. It's names like Curly Lambeau, who, yes, was a great coach, and I will, always defend the original guys in terms of the sport of football. But the reality of it is, Jason, you can't let something like this happen and then, consider yourself the institution that you were considered as before that. It is something that, to me, it's discomforting in terms of what the Pro Football Hall of Fame really means to anybody anymore. Because if you're not going to put what a lot of people would argue, and I think you can hands down unequivocally say, a top 3 coach in the sports history in on the first try, what value do you really serve to the football fans across this great country and across the world, for that matter?
Yeah, and I'm not a Belichick guy. Anybody who knows me knows I've shared a story about how I went to go talk to him one time and he kind of snubbed me. But that's not the reason I'm not a fan. I just didn't like the way he treated the media for all the years that he was around the game and sort of his contributions to the sport beyond what he did just coaching and being on the field. I think I have some issue with. All of that being said, I wonder if this is a 1-year deal, or if there are people that are just going to say, this is my line in the sand, it's Deflategate, it's Spygate, we can't let him in under any circumstances, and as a result, he's just left there rotting.
I mean, that would be a disservice to the sport of football, and you'd have to think, relegate the Pro Football Hall of Fame to the same relevancy, I'm sorry to say it, as the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame. There would be an asterisk next to the Hall of Fame whenever you walk in it, right? We've got great players, but not all the greatest of all time, right? And you have to think, Jason, if that's the mentality, then there's no way they're letting Tom Brady in on the first ballot, right? But there's no way they're not letting Tom Brady in
I
on
don't
the
know
first
that.
ballot.
And Jason, listen, I'll go back to what Jason just said because you didn't get to hear it. He said nothing would shock me. After this, and then look, after this would end. To say that, nothing would shock me. I shared the story with Jason during our segment. I had this conversation. This is why they have a cooling off period. I shared a bus ride with Peter King. This was like 2008, 2009, before the Super Bowl in Miami with the Saints and Colts. He and I just got lucky and got in the height of like Peter King being like the football guy. And he's, by the way, a Hall of Fame selector. I'm sitting next to him on a bus, and I asked him, is Spygate going to keep Belichick out? And he said to me, this is why. This was right after Spygate. He goes, this is why they have cooling off periods. This is why you have a period of time before you decide on putting somebody in, is for that reason. And I'm just stunned that there are people that have held this long. Whether it's Bill Polian, and I'm convinced this is a lot to do with Bill Polian, and shame on him if that's the case, Sam.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's no reason to keep a grudge like this, and to, quite frankly, Bill Polian, do damage to the sport of football if the allegations are true. You are single-handedly doing damage to the entire sport all by yourself. What I'll say about this, regarding your question about the Tom Brady thing and would it shock me, I actually say it would shock me based on the, 24-hour reaction period we've had to Bill Belichick. Listen, I understand that there are some classic thinkers over at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but you got to be some level of smooth-brained to not understand what just happened with Bill Belichick cannot happen with Tom Brady. If it does, you risk the integrity of your entire institution. I think that's a fair assessment to make. If Tom Brady follows this up by also not making the Pro Football Hall of Fame on his very first ballot, I think the integrity of that entire institution can be discounted essentially entirely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, obviously, here with Robert Kraft as well, because he's part of this conversation also. I wanted to get your thoughts real quick in the last minute and a half. Brian Daboll taking the offensive coordinator role in Tennessee with the Titans after not getting the head coaching job in Buffalo with the Bills. Good for Cam Ward?
I like it. I like the hire. I like the coaching staff in Tennessee. I'm starting to really like the Titans for next year, Jason Page, between what they're going to have with Robert Saleh cooking up that defense and leading that team and Brian Daboll as the OC. I think the Titans could actually make some noise in a weak division. Let's call it what it is, in a weak division next year.
Yeah, Daboll, I had to do a double take because I looked at it fast and I said, wait, did he get the head coaching job? And I was like, wait, he couldn't. And then I saw it again and I said, okay, he's just the offensive coordinator. After we find out Joe Brady becomes the head coach in Buffalo with the Bills, you've had a few minutes to marinate in that now. In the last 30 seconds, feel any better or worse about it?
No, my feelings are kind of the same as they were yesterday. It would be false if I sat here and told you it was a bad hire, but I'm not going to go as far as to say that I think they conducted a broad coaching search. I think it was always going to be Joe Brady.
Sammy Arnell hanging out with me. We've got Kurt Helin, who's joining us in a couple of minutes. Get into the NBA with him. Is this league on the verge of just disintegrating under the weight of some of this sports betting stuff that's coming out? We'll get into that as well next. All right, we did a lot of football in the first half of the show on the Bill Belichick Hall of Fame case, selectors, all that. It's a Wednesday on the show, which means we're talking NBA. And that means Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. No Hall of Fame controversies for the NBA right now. Everybody gets into the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, so it doesn't really matter.
It's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA. So, it becomes really broad suddenly sometimes. Yeah.
Everybody gets it. One day, Kurt Helin will be in. I don't know what for, but he will be in one day. No?
Any club that will have me as a member.
It's a club I don't want to be a part of. Yeah, Mark Twain. Okay, so this story in The Athletic, which is basically saying something that I've said from day one of this whole thing when it comes to this sports betting controversy that's sort of enveloped the NBA, that there's no way you can convince me this has just happened a couple of games here and there. And if you start talking about the legitimacy of games and whether or not we're living in a world where the NBA, where you have to wonder what you're watching is real, Kurt.
Yeah.
Does this threaten to tear this league apart?
I mean, if it got big enough, it would. I don't think it's going to get to that point, but it's an issue, and I think we're all in the same boat, right? Like, when they made these arrests, you're like, okay, the federal prosecutors are going to do what we've seen on a million movies and TV shows, right? We're like, hey, we'll give you a deal if you flip on X. And so somebody's going to flip on X. They're really vague right now. They're saying they're investigating more games. We don't know how many more, or if that starts to, more importantly, does that start to drag in more players? If it's still just, look, there were 7 games between Jonte Porter and why am I suddenly going with Terry Rozier? If you start to bring in look, they did it in other games, you'd be kind of like, I could see that. If it starts to drag in other players, not just college players, but we're talking NBA, then it gets interesting. Then it gets more concerning for the league. If this grows beyond just a couple of guys acting rogue, it becomes much harder to, like I said, stick up for the integrity.
Yeah, like, I mean, what separates it from WWE? At that point, it just becomes sports entertainment, because if you can't trust what you're watching, if you can't trust the results, if your sport doesn't have that integrity, I don't know what you have. Go ahead, Sam.
What I was going to say, the other problem is that this isn't, you're fighting a conspiracy, whether you're talking about Tim Donaghy with the NBA, or even the kind of crazy NFL. Oh, they put out that preseason video with Donald and I don't know if you saw that, but there were people claiming this had all been preordained because of some preseason video the NFL did. Like, if you can't easily refute that kind of stuff, it becomes an issue. That's where it starts to become a real problem. And I don't think we're there yet with any of the leagues, but there's a lot of people willing to believe it, because, I mean, look around. There's a lot of people willing to believe a lot of things right now.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Sam.
Kurt, a lot of reporting has come out in the last 36 to 48 hours around the Grizzlies owner, Robert Pera, and his technology company potentially being involved in foreign disputes. Have you heard anything about this from the inside? Do you think it'll be a concern amongst other owners?
No. Well, let me rephrase that. Yes, in perception in some ways, and especially if there starts to be a push and a backlash. Robert Pera hasn't lived regularly in the United States for, maybe a decade. He watches all the games online and all this, but he's not hands-on day to day in a way a lot of owners are. I'll just say this, and this again is not just an NBA thing. If you really want to start tearing up in the owner's business and how they made their money and how ethical that is, it becomes a real issue across the board. These guys did not get to be billionaires because of their support for the working man, across the board, right? So it's a bigger issue, but if he ends up, if there's a backlash that starts to come at him, it'd be interesting to see how the league responds to that.
How much?
And Memphis, by the way, one of those teams where if you're talking about, hey, I wonder if that would ever move out of that market. That's one of the names that comes up, but he's been so rich it hasn't mattered.
How much does all of this threaten the commissioner's tenure? All of this happening under his umbrella, happening under his watch. I mean, is there a threat to him as a result of all of this? When you take it all, the stuff with with Steve Ballmer, take it all and just put it on his lap. How much of a risk is this for Adam Silver right now?
I don't think much of any, just simply because for two reasons. A, he's kind of established. He's won the battles they wanted to win, the big TV deal. He look, every owner, Goodell Manfred, all the way through, and Silver, they work for the owners, remember? He made the owners a bunch of money. The owners are making money out of this. So it would have to get really severe for him.
As if maybe if we found out he knew more and didn't tell, something like that.
Yeah, it would take something pretty extreme for the owners to back away from the guy who made them all this money.
Let me ask you this, though, because it's the question that comes to my mind, having not been around the NBA really prior to the 2000s. But is Adam Silver the commissioner that's had to deal with the most controversy in the NBA's history?
No, David Silver had David Stern.
Yeah.
There was David Stern, the previous owner, had Oh, the Malice in the Palace, and even going back, if you're old like Jason, there was the whole drug issue and the thugs in the '70s that brought
Magic
about
Johnson, HIV. I mean,
yeah, he dealt with a lot of stuff, and in a very different. Stern was old school. I'm the CEO. This is how it's going to happen, and Silver has been more collaborative, and they're very different that way.
We've got more with Kurt Helin. Don't go anywhere. More NBA to talk about. We wrap it up with odds and ends 10 minutes from now. Australian Open to get to. Kurt Helin is here because if it's a Wednesday, we're talking NBA. All right, let's talk about some of the on-the-court stuff, or relatively on-the-court stuff. Giannis, Ja Morant, both out until after the trade deadline.
Anthony Davis.
Yeah. But Anthony Davis we knew. Which of the Giannis, Ja Morant, which is more likely to move?
I mean, which one is more likely to get traded?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to take none. Like, none would be the correct answer. If
really?
Neither of them,
you really think neither of these guys get traded, Kurt?
Before the deadline? No. This summer, all bets are off. This summer, I'm telling you, is going to be wild, but this trade deadline might be pretty mid, and it's going to be a lot of salary cap moving. It's really hard under the current CBA to move any guy making considerable money. If you were going to tell me which one, it would be Morant. It is more likely that somebody came in over the top for him, but it's probably gets done this offseason where they can get more back. The teams are going to look to reshift, and somebody will take a flyer on him. But the problem right now is they want more than the Hawks got for Trae Young. They want more than expiring contract in a rotation wing. They want a young player and a pick, and it's just not there.
That means they're both getting traded before the day. You and I love you.
Yes.
You are my best friend in the whole world when it comes to the NBA. How many times have we done a show and literally later that day,
yes,
something I've had you on to talk about, like Trae Young just got traded. What? Trae Young just got traded? And you text me and go, I guess I was off on the timing on this.
Yeah, that one came a lot faster. Let's just put it this way. I would be shocked if there's a big move. Like the biggest moves are going to be guys like Sabonis and
Herb Jones.
It's not going to be
somebody
huge.
like Herb Jones. Anybody associated with that Pelicans
That's
situation?
what I was going to ask about Zion.
Yeah. Well, look, they're not going to trade Zion only because the return would be pennies on the dollar, and they would like him to play through the rest of the season and up that trade value. Somebody will take a chance on him, but the problem is this: they haven't really put those guys on the market. Don't ask me what Joe Dumars is doing, because I could go back to last year when he traded away the first that he's going to have to give up in this upcoming draft so that he could look, Derek Queen's been good, but doesn't make the process good. They're just not putting anybody available. Like Herb Jones would have, and Trey Murphy both would have a big market right now. They would be one of the biggest, if not the biggest trade at the deadline probably, but you got to make them available, and they just aren't. I don't know what the plan is in New Orleans, but they're not available.
The Clippers, by the way, officially a play-in team. After starting 6-21, they are 16-3 in their last 19, Kurt.
I've been to a number of those games, including the blowout of the Nets, where when it was 47-14 early in the second quarter, I'm like, should I just leave now? Like, what am I getting out of watching?
We need relegation in the NBA. We really do.
Look, two things happened, and both of them kind of tied to the same thing. But really, Kawhi Leonard came back and didn't just come back, but is playing close to the best regular season basketball. This is Spurs level Kawhi Leonard in season. He has been phenomenal on both ends of the floor. And with that, both ends of the floor, the other thing that really changed is their defense was terrible. They were just getting torched. Kawhi coming back and then playing Chris Dunn a little more and just kind of focusing and getting a little better play out of Zubats on that end. The whole thing has just kind of come together. They're great on offense and now good enough on defense to stick. And they've quickly become the team where you're like, yeah, they're probably never going to get out of the play-in. Do I want to see them in the first round? I don't want to. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard become a very tough out, man.
Kurt, the Detroit Pistons continue to be the best team in basketball ever so quietly. I know we talked about them earlier in the season. Do you think they can contend for the title this year? Is this a team that can actually compete in the playoffs? Clearly, Jason doesn't think so.
This has Cavs vibes all over again. A great regular season, they'll lose in the playoffs.
Probably. I still think they need a second shot creator, but I keep saying that, and then I look at the East, and I'm like, who is it? Boston? Maybe when they get Tatum back. Who New York is starting to find its footing again, and they're still probably the team I like best out of that group. But I can't rule out Detroit anymore. I can't say that they aren't going to be able to do it with this core because they defend, because Cade Cunningham is that good. Look, I don't think they're winning the championship. I don't think they can beat whoever comes out of the West is the clear and heavy favorite. But could they reach the finals in this East? Yeah. And I think, by the way, that's what they're doing at the deadline. There's been a lot of calls for them to make a move. They're going to do what Oklahoma City did 2 years ago, which is, we're probably a guy short and stuff, but we're going to see what these guys do under the pressure of the postseason, and then we'll make our adjustments.
Can I get a thought from you on the Cavaliers? Because last year they had this amazing regular season, and then they had all the injuries in the playoffs, and they go out, early there. Could it be that maybe the answer is just play better late in the season, have yourself ready for the playoffs? Because when you look at the East, they're certainly going to compete with the best over there. Yeah. If they're healthy when they get to the playoffs, are they still that dangerous to you when they get to the playoffs?
I think so. Look, it took them a while to Darius Garland is still out. He has not been himself all season. It took a while for them to adjust and kind of find themselves. But that's another team where they finally started to defend again. Like, this was the best offense in the league last year and a good enough defense. Their defense was terrible. It's been better. And Donovan Mitchell quietly is having he should be on the MVP ballot kind of season, right? Like, he is third, fourth best player in the league this season. He has been phenomenal on both ends, but they've got role players who have really started to step up. They started to find the guys who can fill those roles, and they they were my pick preseason, and they're starting to look more like that team coming out of the East.
My friend Kurt Helin, your friend Kurt Helin. If it's all about basketball, check him out. Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com is his jam. I always appreciate you, my man. Be well. We'll talk next week.
I look forward to it.
We got a lot more to do. Odds and Ends wraps it up next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Tomorrow, Dennis Bernstein slated to be in here to talk about some hockey. Australian Open reaction. We'll get to that as well. Further Australian Open reaction. Before we go, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to the audio-only version of this show, Monday through Friday, available early in the afternoon. In addition to that, we have the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, which is the place for all things Sports Wrap. We have the show there, the TV version of this show, Monday through Friday, available on our YouTube channel early every afternoon. It's great, commercial-free, 45 minutes waiting there for you. Our top takes, everything we've got going on, conversations, all there for you. In addition, we have some of our extended conversations because not everything fits into a 1 hour show. Those could also be found on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Also, Sports Wrap shorts are there, covering the top stories. When news breaks, we jump on the YouTube channel with Sports Wrap shorts. Make sure to grab those. 1 to 3 minutes long, available for you every day of the week. If there's news breaking, we're talking about it. Sports Wrap shorts also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and Ends, Sam Yarnell. Breaking news from the world of the NFL. For the second straight day, we have a coaching hiring to announce in Odds and Ends. Todd Monken, the former Ravens offensive coordinator, the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, Jason. They follow the same model that they used to get to Kevin Stefanski. And, like, you can't say that that's a bad one. Kevin Stefanski did win 2 Coach of the Years. Is that the correct? Is
Sure.
it Coaches of the Year? Coach of the Years? Regardless, whatever it is, he won 2 of them during his tenure in Cleveland. I'm not... Jason, I think it's a good hire. I think Todd Monken, you saw what he did with Lamar Jackson. You saw what he can do with an offense with weapons. I don't mind this hire for the Browns. I think it might be a good one for them.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's just the ownership situation there. And I'm not saying situation is in, like, are they going to get sold or anything like that. It's just, between that and the meddling in the day-to-day operations of the team, I think has a lot to do with what goes on there. What direction do they go with the draft? Obviously Shedeur Sanders and the quarterback situation. There's just so much uncertainty around that team, and there's so much negativity around that organization. I don't know how you flip that. I don't know if there ever is a right guy for that organization to be able to flip that situation, to pull the 180, if it could all be done at once or if it's going to be a slow thing. I love Cleveland. Listen, I've done a little bit of sports talk in Cleveland. I'm rooting for that fan base because if ever a fan base deserved a good football team, fans in Cleveland and you guys watching us over there on the Rock Sports and Entertainment, we love you guys. I'm rooting for them to get a situation here where they could start to turn this thing around in Cleveland. So.
And I think Todd Monken is the guy to bring that to them. I'll say this to your point about the ownership. It was widely known that John Harbaugh was trying to bring Todd Monken to New York to be his offensive coordinator.
Yes.
And at that point, at least in my opinion, you're now choosing between ownership groups, right? And you have John Harbaugh, who's reporting directly to that owner, who has also displayed habitual meddling within the organization's daily operations, or you can go be the head man in Cleveland. And, I'm not going to say that it was, the better decision or the more right decision, but it was clearly Todd Monken, I think, taking a bet on himself rather than on John Harbaugh.
Australian Open, wow. Novak Djokovic moves through against Lorenzo Musetti after dropping the first 2 sets, being up a break in the 3rd set was Djokovic, but you had some sort of quad injury for Musetti, forces him to pull out in the 3rd set when he's up 2 sets to love on Novak Djokovic. And Musetti was playing one of his best tournaments that I've ever seen him play. I've watched almost every minute of this Australian Open on the men's and women's side, but he is unfortunately out. Djokovic will get Jannik Sinner in the semifinals. And look, we have a semifinal with Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Novak Djokovic. My Macaulay Culkin shocked face. I can't believe that's what's happening. No, I can believe that's what's happening. Poor Ben Shelton gets his doors blown off by Sinner. Waiting for him to make that jump. Hasn't happened yet, so.
I mean, yeah, well, when you're playing again, everyone who watches the show knows how I feel about Jannik Sinner. When you're playing against him, not only do you have to beat the player, you also have to beat modern science, because we know what's fueling that guy. You'll say this about the Djokovic thing, right? Everyone knew coming into this tournament, he's been around so long. If he wants to have any sort of a shot at this thing, he has to have maybe the clearest path in the tournament's history, and he's had it. Straight sets, walkover, retirement to get to this point. It's been an easy ride. I'm not going to write him off yet.
I will write him off. It's going to be Alcaraz or Sinner. Sinner's like the modern-day Ivan Drago. Whatever he hits, he destroys. Thanks to Kurt Helin.
Or Barry Bonds. You could say that too.
Thanks to Jason Cole. Thanks to Kurt Helin. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got SportsWrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as exciting. They're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.